hello from Learn Channel Studio and welcome to our new show. My name is Drena and I will be your host for this broadcast. Today we have the pleasure to welcome once again Mrs. Nicole Smart, the internationally experienced corporate trainer for management and leadership development. Nicole, hello. It's a pleasure to have you again in our show.
Hi, Drena. It's an absolute pleasure to be back, and thank you again for the opportunity to you and Leon Professional Development Institute.
As virtual meetings have become an essential part of how modern businesses maintain productivity and continuity, the virtual meeting etiquette is a whole new thing compared to in-person meetings. To help you keep your meetings productive and professional while at the same time maintain your confidence in them, Nicole will share with us her knowledge and advices on online presentation etiquette and executive presence. Nicole, let's start off with understanding the meeting etiquette and what are the differences and the benefits of virtual meetings.
Well, that's just it, right? So online presentation etiquette is essentially the way we conduct ourselves online. It's the way we sit. It's the way we hold our body language, the eye contact that we give one another. And in this case, it would be through the eye of the camera, through the lens, as I'm doing right now to you. So the difference being, of course, in a face-to-face environment or meeting, we would have the opportunity to be aware of, the way we're sitting, or if we're slouching or leaning in or whatever. We have obviously different prompts from our environment. The difference, of course, is we don't necessarily have that online. So essentially, it's more important for us to be self-aware in a sense as if the best way to put it is be in TV presenter mode. And that essentially is what I like to refer to as online presentation etiquette.
What kind of new challenges do virtual meetings and presentations bring to the table?
So many, right? I think the challenge is many people are camera shy. I mean, that's a historical fact, essentially. So it's taken quite a while to undo what we were once comfortable with in the face-to-face space and become more comfortable connecting through this medium. So there's that challenge. Of course, there's other challenges like background noise, camera angles or computer screens being, facing different directions, sort of navigating one's own environment and so on and so forth. But one of the greatest challenges is also what, in my experience, I find that people feel disconnected. It's almost like I'm here, you're there, and there's this thing in between us. And if we can only but alter that perception, it changes everything. Because essentially, if you think about it, if we think about it, we sit and watch televisions, we'll watch a movie for 2 hours, we'll buy into the narrative, knowing that it is not reality. We're sitting in our lounge, for example, watching a box and actors act in a box, and we're completely comfortable with that. We'll watch the news, we'll watch a broadcaster deliver the news on a box called our TV and be totally comfortable with that. So I think if we sort of destigmatize this idea that online is a barrier and just get used to it and realize that every day we're online, whether it's WhatsApp or it's on, emails, we're online. So essentially there is no barrier. The barrier, however, is the manner in which we communicate on the medium. And that's what we're here to discuss.
What are some tips or best practices you would like to share with our viewers when it comes to online presentation etiquette?
Well, Brenda, first of all, it would be to follow your modality. I mean, you have online presentation etiquette. And what does that mean? Okay, if I were to translate that. The best tips or the easiest tips to follow is just to remember that to think of oneself as a television presenter. And that would mean that essentially we would call this a medium shot. So if we can get our laptop, like mine is in front of me, on a medium shot, clean background, no distractions. The lighting, we try to ensure that, you don't have a bright light in your face or a really dark room. These are small, small tweaks. Be mindful of what is in the background. So I was in a meeting recently and the painting behind the person I was speaking to was like this. And it was such a distraction just because of that minor tweak. So it's situational awareness. So from the top, square medium shot, lighting is essential, stomach in, shoulders back, and a comfortable space. We should be mindful not to have our faces too close into the camera, or the camera facing up, or the camera facing down. Of course, remembering that online, this is your CV, this is your resume. And going back to your first question about some of the challenges, we are often more judged through the eye of the lens, right? So people are a lot more aware of us, and therefore we should be more aware of ourselves. And so things like default behavior in meetings and clicking pens, maybe yawning, checking watches, looking at the cell phone, these things are obviously to be avoided. So again, stomach in, shoulders back, TV presenter mode, and most importantly, if we could try to practice to look into the eye of the camera, into the lens, I'm just going to point at it, because the minute I drop my eyes now and I look at myself while I'm talking, so take a look at my eyes, if I'm starting to talk to you, but I'm looking at me, I've already lost that intimate eye connection. So of course, if somebody else would be speaking to me and I'm looking at them on the screen, that's fantastic. But then if we could come back to the camera and look into the camera and sort of see the faces a little bit below, that's when we feel that we're really, really connected and we're not speaking at somebody, we're speaking to them.
The term executive presence has been floating around a lot lately, but its meaning is often unknown. According to research by Tracom Group and HCI, 51% of HR practitioners believe executive presence is difficult to define. Can you tell us what executive presence is and why it is important?
Fantastic questions. Thank you very much, Drenna. Well, executive presence essentially is about how one owns their space. So it's about the presence, the very presence that an executive, a leader, a manager, or a member of the team will have. And that is not necessarily presence through authority or through title, as in manager, leader, and so on. It's about a sense of ownership, accountability, a sense of self-confidence, but not arrogance. So one can be incredibly shy, but have an immense executive presence to be able to, for example, sit in a meeting and hold, like I say, you hold your space, be able to connect, have good eye contact, demonstrate effective listening skills, and not necessarily say a word, but still be very loud, if you want to put it that way, in the room. And it's that, again, if you can imagine it being sort of a comfortable sense of ownership of oneself.
And can you tell us about some of the traits of leaders and managers that have executive presence?
Right. So why is it so important? There's a plenitude of reasons why it is important, but let me just summarize and say this. I coach many individuals worldwide on how to enhance or train and how to enhance their leadership capabilities and their competencies. And executive presence is a key aspect of this. In order to be taken seriously, order to be perceived as a leader is very, very important. And again, leader not by virtue of manager or position, but a leader in one's own space and within the team. So executive presence is a mode of communication to say that I am confident within my space and I can hold my space and I'm a participative member of this team. Now imagine if our entire team was groomed to enhance their executive presence, how that sense of teamship intelligence will unfold. And that then in turn has a knock-on effect on our stakeholder engagement and management, and of course the relations and perception of our clientele. So that's also one of the key areas of why it's so critically important.
And can you tell us about some of the traits of leaders and managers that have executive presence?
Absolutely. So there's the atypical executive presence. I'm in control. I'm an assertive speaker. I can engage an audience. That's wonderful. The executive presence that I'm particularly referring to, as I said earlier, is a sense of, and this is my interpretation, stomach in, shoulders back, owning one's space. If leaders or managers are in a dynamic, in a discussion, and they're being triggered, for example, and that those triggers are going to show up as they do on our faces by virtue of either we'll show irritation or aggression, or our body language is going to ultimately respond to the triggers in our environment. So executive presence is also about that ability to keep one's cool, not to necessarily have a poker face, but be able to be very self-aware and in tune with one's body language. And that also, which we'll talk about at another time, is related to our voice projection, our tone of voice, our eye contact, our response time when we're answering questions. Do we cut people off? Do we listen attentively? So I would say, in summary to that question, it's the ability to be without being. It's the ability to speak without necessarily saying a word.
What kind of impact does executive presence have on company culture?
Immense. Organizations call us in, on a daily basis in order to instill a sense of team cohesiveness, confidence development, brand development, corporate visibility. And so executive presence at a primal level, an individual level, as I said, multiplied by everybody within the organization, will raise that vibration and that sense of teamship intelligence, meaning that the teams are growing and demonstrating that growth, that confidence, the deportment together collectively. And so that definitely alters the perception of the brand as a unit. And again, there's the concept of groupthink, which essentially is when the group tries to mirror the behavior of each other in order to gain consensus. There's a term called groupthink. When positive groupthink, like executive presence, starts to have a knock-on effect and everybody sort of comes across with a better sense of confidence and togetherness, that has a fantastic effect on the corporate culture, depending on, of course, how it is demonstrated.
Is executive presence a personality trait or a skill that you can learn?
Good question. It's both. However, it's definitely, unquestionably, a skill that we can absolutely learn. There are well-known tips and techniques in order to do so.
How can leaders build executive presence?
That is a very good question. Right, so the best way to put this is and I would like to refer to emotional intelligence. So this is something I'm very, very passionate about, Dr. Daniel Goleman's 4 quadrants. And the first quadrant is self-awareness. If we can get into a mindset of continued self-awareness, that is the first step. But the question is, how do we do that, and what is self-awareness? And that is to start essentially becoming very aware of one's own being, aware of one's own environment. And that is a deliberate, what I mean by aware is to deliberately be aware of our environment. Okay, so imagine right now, how do I start? Where do I start? It's exactly like here we go. It's like looking into the metaphoric mirror. It's to start forming a relationship with oneself in the mirror, meaning that if executives and managers can practice the art of walking into a room or a communication setting, just like right now, I'm communicating to you, I'm answering a question. So I'm speaking to you, that's what you're seeing. But what you're not seeing is my third party, or rather, like I like to refer to it as my drone. So I've stepped into psychological third party and I'm standing next to myself in the form of a drone. And my drone is saying to me, Nicole, keep your stomach in, your shoulders back, keep smiling, keep looking into the camera, don't default, keep speaking smoother, don't speed up, don't slow down, don't etc. So I've got a sense of self-awareness all the time. So essentially what I'm trying to say is there's 2 of me in the room right now. And that's the very first step. And tips and techniques on how we can start to do that is to, when we're in a communication setting, whilst you're speaking and so on, ask yourself, am I sitting okay? Am I slumping? I'm bored, if that's what I'm thinking. Am I demonstrating that on my face? Is it showing up? I'm getting agitated by what somebody's saying. Perhaps maybe it's a conflict situation and I can feel that it's showing up. I can feel it. So what I mean by that is to become physically aware with oneself. And when we start to think of it that way, it becomes a lot easier for us to learn these tips and techniques of this presence, because we're not in a one-dimensional communication frame mindset. We're sort of taking the blinkers off. And that can be achieved through our training and coaching programs that we offer at Leron.
That was a great demonstration, Nicole. We would like to wrap up by asking you what kind of training is available to upgrade these skills for having successful virtual meetings.
Well, at Leron, we offer an online presentation etiquette and corporate visibility program where leaders and managers and executives can join to learn these techniques and put that into practice. And we also offer one-on-one executive or group coaching to achieve the exact same.
Nicole, thank you for joining us today. It was a pleasure to have you on our show.
You're absolutely welcome, and thank you to you and to all the viewers.
A big thanks to our viewers as well for tuning in. If you want to watch this episode or browse more topics, you can always visit our YouTube and Vimeo channels and watch our recorded sessions. For any suggestions on new topic of discussion, feel free to write to us or leave a comment, and we will review it with our content team. Until next time, stay tuned.